Welcome back to the Hockey Hotbed, presented as always by the Hockey Podcast Network, as well as DraftKings. Make sure you use promo code THBN when you visit the DraftKings Sportsbook app for great odds and opportunities. Again, promo code THBN at the DraftKings Sportsbook app. We're back here on Season 1, Episode 6 of the Hockey Hotbed. Thank you to everybody for tuning in to what will now be our Central Division previews. When it comes to the four divisions, I wanted to kick it off with the Central because this one was probably the hardest for me to predict because there's so many teams that could be good, but I'm not necessarily sure they're going to be. And I do want to start it off with one of the teams that I think is going to be at the bottom of this division. I think is going to be at the bottom of the league standings throughout probably the entire season. And I did talk about him in segment 1 a little bit, and I said I hope that all the press is good press, but this is not going to be good press for the Arizona Coyotes because I think they're not going to have a great season. I mentioned, yes, they still have a good player in Jakob Chychrun. Really good defenseman. Could be a Norris caliber defenseman. They have a good player in Phil Kessel. Everybody loves Phil Kessel. He's still down there in the desert. Clayton Keller is still there. He's a very talented player. They're back to the Kachinas. It's a fresh season, and they're probably going to be contending for Shane Wright the entire time, which is obviously not a good thing if you want to watch winning hockey. They've had some arena drama, as it is going to be the last season for them at Gila River Arena. They're not going to be relocated though, thankfully. I'm glad they're not going to be relocated. I do not want to see the Arizona Coyotes move to Quebec City. I don't want to see that. I'm not ready to give up on the Coyotes or Arizona yet. Neither is the NHL. Neither is Gary Bettman. There's no reason to relocate this team. They've shown in the past that they can be a successful franchise. They just need to be ran the correct way. And that's what they started to do during this offseason. Now, this is going to be the first season for the Arizona Coyotes in the Central Division after the realignment, thanks to the addition of the Seattle Kraken in the NHL. The Coyotes were kicked from probably the worst division in hockey right now in the Pacific to a division that I'm not going to say they're heading into the season as the best, but if all of these teams play at the top of their talents and the top of their abilities and to the best of their abilities all year, it could be in the running for one of the best divisions in hockey. I'm not joking about that. I know it might sound like it because of how highly I speak of the Metropolitan Division and how highly I speak of the Atlantic Division, but there is definitely a way that the Central Division could become the best division in hockey. The Arizona Coyotes winning would not be part of it, unfortunately. I don't think the Arizona Coyotes have much of a shot at the playoffs. That's why I put them in my bottom 4. That's why I'm talking about them first, because I think they're the least likely to move up from this prediction. Now, in the future, could they be better? Yes. They only have 6 roster players under contract past this season. It's going to be a blank slate for the Coyotes. Not only that, they have 9 picks in the first and second round of next year's draft. So if you want drama and you're a Coyotes fan, you just wait until next offseason. 9 picks, I'm sure some of those are going to get traded. Only 6 roster players. You're going to be adding a lot of players, signing a lot of contracts. There's going to be a lot of news if you're an Arizona Coyotes fan in the summer of 2022. And the rebuild can finally begin properly. They had a little quick shot at trying to contend here when they brought in Phil Kessel, when they initially signed Rick Tocchet a couple years ago, or hired, I should say, before he was fired at the end of last season. They sold off Darcy Kemper in the offseason, Connor Garland. They got rid of the Oliver Ekman-Larsson contract. They took on a couple bad contracts from the Canucks, but most of them will be off the books after this year. They also traded Christian Dvorak, and they traded a young stud goaltender in Adin Hill. But they got plenty of pieces back. Like I mentioned, 9 picks in the first and second round of next year's draft. The best part about the Coyotes during this season is going to be watching the Kachina. It truly is. And watching Jakob Chychrun. I don't want anybody to realize. I want people to realize how good Jakob Chychrun actually is. But other than that, other than the Kachina, Chychrun, possibly Kessel and Keller, there's not going to be much to watch in Arizona. It's the start of a full-on rebuild. They sold all the way during this past offseason. They're going to be relocated after this season to a separate arena in the state of Arizona. I believe they're trying to build one in Tempe. So we'll see how that works out. I hope it does for them. I truly do. But as far as this season, it's not going to work out for them. The next team that I have in my bottom four is the Nashville Predators. They made a great playoff push last season. At the end of the season, they were really good. It got them into the postseason. And they even gave the Carolina Hurricanes a challenge in that first round. They were a tough team to beat. We started to see the Nashville Predators of 2017 back again. Unfortunately, I don't think that carries over. I still put them in the bottom of this division. That defense can still be really good. That defense can still be really good. You have Roman Josi, who's a Norris Trophy winner. You have Matthias Ekholm, who is still pretty good. And behind that, you also have some other pretty decent defensemen. But to me, losing both Kalle Järnkrok and Victor Arvidsson for nothing, really nothing. You got nothing back for Arvidsson. You lost Järnkrok to Seattle. That's going to hurt. A forward depth that already wasn't too impressive to begin with. Ryan Johansson, it doesn't really spark too much excitement. Matt Duchene as kind of their premier forward next to Philip Forsberg doesn't really spark too much excitement. I don't know if Philip Forsberg can carry this team. I don't. And I don't know if there's many other names on this Nashville Predators team that's going to get it done. First year without Pekka Rinne. I still think they're fine in net. Obviously, UC Saros is a really good goaltender. They have a really good defense. They're just in the wrong division to play that way. If they were in the Pacific Division, it'd be a different story because the entire Pacific Division, minus the Vegas Golden Knights, is defense and scoring just enough goals. But the Central's not going to be like that. You're going to have to score more to win in the Central. You're going to have to score more to beat a team like Colorado. I think you're going to have to score more to beat a team like Minnesota. To beat a team like Chicago even. And we'll get to them. But I don't think the Predators have enough forward depth to get the job done this year. That's why I have them in my bottom four. The next team I have in my bottom four is the Dallas Stars. And I had trouble putting them in here. And this is in no particular order. Other than the fact that I think the Coyotes are going to finish last, most of these are not in any particular order. But I do have the Stars in the bottom half of this division this year. They missed the playoffs entirely last season. Now, they did deal a lot with COVID issues. They did deal a lot with injury issues last season. And listen, they're a talented team. They are a very talented team. I'm not going to lie. They're a good team. A team that could throw this in my face very easily and be in the top four in the division. But something about this doesn't fit to me. Their big offseason acquisition was adding Braden Holtby from the Vancouver Canucks to an already pretty full goaltending rotation. They also added Ryan Suter, which was a good move on their part, picking him up after he got let go, or bought out, I should say, from the Minnesota Wild. So I think they had a decent offseason. I just don't understand not making a move, not adding a different piece. They lost Jamie Alexiak. I get that wasn't a huge piece. They also lost, I believe they lost Jason Dickinson. Let me double check that really quickly. But I do still think they're a talented team. Joe Pavelski, I feel like not enough people are giving him credit for the role he's played since he's gone over to the Stars. Rupe Hintz in the picture to my left again is a young player that is also not getting enough credit. So we'll see what they can do. I mean, they're a team that 2 years ago were in the Stanley Cup final against a really good Tampa Bay team. So yeah, do I think that they can be good? I do. I think they can be, but something tells me that they're not gonna be. You know, right now they're over the salary cap. And they did lose Jason Dickinson. I just wanted to double check that. Who was a pretty important player to their team last year. But it's just when I look at this team and I look at this roster, there are plenty of good players. Alex Radulov is still a good player. Jamie Benn is still a good player. Tyler Seguin, who knows how good he's going to be this year. But at the same time, the guys I just mentioned are getting a little bit older, and it's going to be a little bit harder for them to carry this team. Do they have the young studs to be able to supplement their scoring? Maybe. I like Rupe Hintz. I do. I like Denis Gurianov. I think he's really good. But do they have enough? And is their goaltending going to be able to stay healthy? I mean, Anton Khudobin is back. I told you that they added Braden Holtby. Can he get a bounce back? If he can get a bounce back, that changes this entire conversation. If he becomes the Braden Holtby that we saw during certain points in Washington, that changes this entire conversation. To have him and Khudobin in there. Ben Bishop is fighting injury once again. So you have him injured, and then you also have Jake Ottinger, who's going to supplement. Doesn't seem like he's ever going to become the number one in Dallas, does it? So they have a lot of options in net. They're decent defensively. Their top-end forwards could be really good, but there's still questions to me. That's why I have them in the bottom four. The last team that I have in the bottom four, and it might be a surprise to most people, is the St. Louis Blues. They were able to make the postseason last year in a weak Western Division. They were able to slide in as the number 4 seed, only to get embarrassed by the Colorado Avalanche. Now, to be fair, the Avalanche were the President's Trophy winners. The Avalanche were absolutely an embarrassment of riches when it came to talent. And they were a really good team. St. Louis, it was basically Jordan Binnington. How long can he hold the fort? Eventually, the dam was going to break, and it did. But the Avalanche, all in all, embarrassed the St. Louis Blues in the postseason last year. They weren't ready for the postseason. I think everybody in St. Louis was of that understanding that this team is not going to make noise in the postseason. But it was nice for them to get there. It was. It was nice to see the St. Louis Blues back in the postseason. Now, since then, they added Brandon Saad from that really good Avalanche team. I think he helps a little bit with depth scoring for St. Louis. They added Pavel Buchnevich coming over from the New York Rangers. That's also a good addition. They didn't trade Vladimir Tarasenko. Oddly enough, yet. Whether or not they will, we don't know anymore. That seemed like it was priority number 1 for the St. Louis Blues. Trade him, get some cap space so you can sign the guys that you need to sign. They haven't traded him yet, but they did sign Brandon Saad. They did trade for Pavel Buchnevich, and they did just sign a couple days ago Robert Thomas. They're over the salary cap, but they can easily send a couple guys down to the minors, and they'll be cap compliant. That's not technically the issue. The issue is it seemed like during the final game of the Stanley Cup Finals last year, it seemed like Vladimir Tarasenko and the St. Louis Blues come to a realization that their time together was over. Yet Tarasenko is wearing a Blues sweater at training camp now. How that's going to work, we don't know. That's just a storyline that's going to continue from the offseason right into the regular season. Do I think that hurts the St. Louis Blues? No, I don't think it hurts the St. Louis Blues. I think Vladimir Tarasenko is going to go out there and do the best he can and probably be an extremely talented player and still possibly get traded in the first month and second month of the season. If the Blues decide to keep him, yeah, I think he could be a decent player for them. I think he could be an important player for the St. Louis Blues, but it has seemed like they are moving on from that era of Blues hockey. And when I look at the division as a whole, and I look at the 4 teams that I'm going to put in the top 4, which now if you're, addition by subtraction, deductive reasoning, you know what 4 teams I'm putting in the top 4 and I'm going to talk about in the last segment. But when I look at those teams and I look at the St. Louis Blues, it seems like the St. Louis Blues just held pat. Okay, you added Brandon Saad. That's a good addition to your forward core. You added Pavel Buchnevich. That is a good addition to your forward core. But it doesn't seem like they really moved the needle all that much. They were a fringe playoff team last year that was able to make it just at the end in a very weak division. Now they're back into a division with some teams that are better. I mean, the top tier of the teams in the West last year, a lot of them are back in the Central with the St. Louis Blues. You're talking Minnesotas, you're talking Colorados. And then other teams around them got better. Dallas and St. Louis, I see around at the same level. So I'm not sure what to think of the St. Louis Blues. They were a fringe playoff team last season. They brought back basically their entire team, except for the addition of a Buchnevich and Assad. To me, that just doesn't move the needle enough. It does not move the needle enough. So I have them to start the season in my bottom four. We're going to take another quick break, but when we return, we're going to have the top four teams, by my opinion and by my standards, of the Central Division heading into the 2021-22 regular season. We'll be right back.